This story takes place over the course of about 10 years, and there is quite a bit of backstory that needs to be covered. I am an artist craftsman. I work in the US and have chosen a profession where making a good, stable living isn't all that easy. This is in part due to lack of opportunities, but also because art just isn't something everyone can budget for. So to be successful, you have to carve out a niche where you can express yourself, but also pull in those dollars. It also helps to have a talented assistant. I started in this field about 15 years ago, and the guy who started training me, let's call him Kay, had carved out such a niche doing long-running festivals, selling his work and doing live demonstrations while on a microphone, think 4 10-week-long art shows. He was doing well enough that he only did 3 of these shows a year, and his wife was a stay-at-home mom. Now, the thing about this particular niche of shows is that there may be a couple hundred in the US, but only around 50 that can support an artist that does what Kay and I do. There are also only about a dozen or so different artists in my field that do these shows, so we all know each other by reputation, if not personally. These shows also overlap each other, and you can't work 2 different shows that run at the same time. Obviously, it's difficult to be in 2 places at once. So once you lose a show, it can be really difficult to replace it since there is probably another artist already at the shows that can support us. Kay was a terrible person. He would scream and yell at his helpers, treated his wife like garbage. I'm 99% sure he is cheating on her with his current apprentice. He threw tools at me on more than one occasion. These are solid steel tools, hand tools. He would even curse while on the microphone, then try and play it off as part of the act. To me, the worst is when he would yell at kids who were watching. He would be performing, and some kid in the audience would ask a question or laugh or make noise like kids do, and Kay's reaction would literally be to look at the kid, make eye contact with the closest adult, and say, "Can't you shut that kid up?" If this happened more than twice a day, which it almost always did, sprinkle in an F-bomb or 2. I promise that in the environment these shows were taking place, a kid, even a loud one, shouldn't have been an issue. There were always background noises at these shows. I put up with all of it because I was getting taught it was difficult and expensive to learn art fine craft and getting paid to learn. For most people, the only way to learn this art is to take extremely expensive private classes, upwards of $175 an hour for something that takes no fewer than 5,000 hours to reach professional level skill, or go to a university if you can find one that has a program that focuses on this art. After working for Kay for about 7 years, I felt like my skills were plateauing. I just wasn't getting better anymore, and I felt like I still had a lot to learn. He made me feel like I was at fault, saying things like some people just can't ever get better than this or not. Everyone is cut out for journeyman or master-level work. Around this time, I had gone to a family reunion and, while there, went to a park where there was someone doing demonstrations in my field. Not the same niche I was working in, but close enough, and I realized 2 things. 1, they were looking for help, and 2, this would be a permanent year-round gig, where I wouldn't have to travel at the whim of Kay and deal with his BS anymore. I applied and got the job. It was difficult to uproot the family. I have a wife and, at the time, 1 baby, and move 600 miles, but we made it work. I gave Kay 4 weeks' notice that I would be leaving. He was furious. He screamed and threw tools and raw materials. He demanded I show him the offer letter from my new job. I refused. He told me I had to sign a non-compete. I refused. He told me how unfair I was, and that I needed to give him at least 6 months' notice because he would have to find and train someone to perform my basic duties. I told him the new job wanted me to start right away, but was willing to wait, but only 4 weeks, he grumbled. But what choice did he have? Now, during those last 4 weeks, he busted my butt. I worked as hard as I ever have and often went above and beyond. I was always early. I always stayed late. I killed it, all while packing up my whole life and getting ready to move 600 miles. 2 days before I was done with Kay, he found out that my new job started 4 days after my last day with him. He didn't understand why I couldn't just stay and help for those last 4 days. I tried to explain that I needed to pack a whole apartment worth of furniture and make the drive down to my new job, that I needed time to get settled. He lost it, throwing tools, screaming in my face, threatening to hit me. The works. Despite all that, I finished up my last 2 days with consummate professionalism, and I swore that if I were ever in his position, I would never treat an assistant apprentice like he treated me. 2 months into my new job, and I realized something profound. My skills hadn't plateaued. I had been sabotaged. Kay had purposely been teaching me wrong techniques to keep me at a skill level he wanted me to. He never wanted me to grow beyond the skill set I had because he didn't want to train a replacement one day. I was at my new job for 3 years before I moved on, and in that time learned as much, if not more, than I had in the 7 previous. New boss was awesome, calm, and laid back, the total opposite of Kay. Where's the revenge, you are wondering? We're about to get to that. 2 years into my new job, I get a call from one of the higher-ups at Kay's biggest show. They have had it with his behavior. Apparently, he got worse after I left and have decided to let him go. They wanted to know if I wanted the gig. Now, Kay kept all his financial information pretty close to his chest, but I'd been with him long enough to know how big of a blow this would be for him. This one show was more than 70% of his annual income. He had a pretty sweet deal. I, of course, told the show boss that yes, I was interested, but my wife had just given birth and wouldn't be available until the next year. She agreed to keep Kay for 1 more season and bring me on the next year. The following year, I said my goodbyes to my new job and started on the show circuit. I found a couple of smaller shows to add to my calendar that didn't have someone like me. Honestly, the shows were too small, but I needed to make a little more than what that one show would pay out. Kay had to pick up 7 shows to replace the one his bad behavior cost him. Now, back when I worked for Kay, he had another assistant, part-time. We will call M. She still sometimes worked for Kay, and when I took over his big show, I asked her to come work for me. She was thrilled to. 2 days into the new show, Kay comes at me with a letter stating that because I employed M, he would take me to court for knowingly helping her violate a non-compete that she had signed. He would have me shut down, sued for damages, etc. Now, M had signed this non-compete 10 years ago. It had extremely loose and vague wording. I knew it wouldn't hold up. Kay knew it wouldn't hold up. We both also knew he had me by the short hairs. The non-compete was drawn up in State X, despite M never having worked in that state. That state has the most pro-employer laws regarding non-competes in the country. If Kay took me to court, he could have a judge force me to stop doing business while the issue was reviewed. I was contractually obligated to perform at this show. Even if the judge only shut me down for a week, I would be in breach of contract. I would lose my place at this show, lose tens of thousands of dollars in sales, lose thousands in performance fees, and have to pay a penalty to the show. I took the letter and a copy of the non-compete to my lawyer, who confirmed my fears. He basically told me I was screwed. I went to Kay and asked what it would cost to buy his goodwill on behalf of M. Buying goodwill is the legal term for buying out a non-compete. $8,000, what he typically paid her a year. She was part-time, remember. Done. This was the catalyst for my revenge. This was the moment I decided to make it my mission to crush Kay. I could have forgiven everything else, but he was so petty in the end I couldn't let that go. Time for revenge. The big show loved me. They said I was so much easier to work with than Kay. They were so happy they gave me customer testimonials and a letter of recommendation so that I could start picking up other large shows and start dropping the small ones. I immediately set out to pick up other large shows. I started with all the shows where Kay was performing. In 4 years, I've taken 1 show from him each year. He is currently down to 3 shows, one of which he is a partial owner, so I'll never be able to take that one from him. I am currently in negotiations for his other 2 shows, though. Kay has had to cut way back on his spending. His daughter no longer goes to private school. His wife has had to go back to work. He is considering selling his house. Soon, he will have to look outside of his niche to find work. I estimate that his annual income has gone from around $300,000 a year to around $40,000 a year over the last 5 years. My mother is a typical tiger mom, Asian American slang for helicopter parent. One of her many toxic traits was that she demanded access to my room at all times, so my door had no lock. So one morning when she was snooping around my room as I was asleep, she found my nicotine products. Yeah, it's bad for you, but this ain't what the story's about, and I never used it in the house. And after an earful, I decided that my privacy would be breached no longer as I'm no longer a minor. I bring home from my local Home Depot a lock and key doorknob, much to my mom's rage. After a couple days, I got careless and left my door open as I was eating breakfast to return to the knob being drilled out by a smug old lady. I'm heated at her and myself, but let it go because I had nothing to hide really at this point. Come to find out, she only removed solely the knob and not the inner sliding mechanism that keeps doors closed. This effectively made it a pain to open my door without a really tough-skinned thumb, pen, etc. So for the following week, she would attempt to enter my room only to fumble with the mechanism and give up. She'd try telling me to let her in, to which I'd respond that she may, the door was unlocked. This also gave me time to set my image up as a good man, steadying as she walked to get something to pry the door open. After a while, she returned my lock knob since I threw away my lockless knob. A couple lectures later, she now only tries to pin me for trouble outside the comfort of my room. Edit. I didn't think this was going to light up a debate. Bottom line, yes, I'm looking for avenues to move out. However, my work-school balance is going to make it a longer and more complex solution than it should be. This happened literally 10 minutes ago. I work for a candy store, and I'm currently the only one here. My boss had to go to another location to help due to some issues. Anyways, every 2 hours, you're allowed a 10 to 15-minute break. And since I am the only one here, I have to close the store for the duration of my break. I put up a sign saying what time the store would reopen, but this Karen was not having it. I'm in the break room, relaxing when I hear a bunch of knocks on the door. I ignore them because it's my break and the sign on the door clearly says when the store will reopen. The knocks stopped and the phone started ringing. You do have to answer the phone even if you're on your break and you're the only one there. So I answer and I'm immediately screamed at, "Karen, why are you closed?" Nay, because I'm on my break, ma'am. There's a sign taped to the door saying when the store will reopen. Karen, well, get off your lazy butt and open. Nay, no, I don't think I'll do that. I'm actually gonna take a few more extra minutes from my break. Have a good day. I hung up and went to the front and tore off the sign right in front of the Karen and turned the sign from open to closed. I texted my boss and told her what happened, and she said to just stay closed until the lady leaves or until she gets back. This lady started to try and force the doors open. The doors are glass, and she was trying to break the glass to get in. I ended up calling security, who thankfully arrived really quickly and escorted the woman off the property. I love Karens.